Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nunn. I think we're streaming. Are we streaming, Rob? It looks like we are. Can you hear me, Rob? You got me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Can you hear me?
All right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. I think we are going here. I'm doing my checks on the socials and making sure that we are good to go. Yeah, it says we're live now. Let me get that set up. And welcome everyone to episode 306 of Stu and the Nunn. And it's Stu and Rob tonight as I get things going here. I think we are going here. I'm doing my check. There we go. And getting that set up. That Rob throwing the socials up there. Thank you everyone for joining. So we are episode 306, and let me get all the socials. Yep, there we go. Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah. That's not right. I got a new mixing box, and I determined today that I was going to send it back, and my new one doesn't get here till tomorrow. It sounds great. It just doesn't work the way I want it to. So I am already got the Amazon return set up. I'm sending this mixer back. It didn't quite cut it, as you can see. It is disconnecting from my computer and reconnecting every once in a while. So
you probably get faster Amazon delivery than I do.
I ordered it this afternoon, and it's going to be here tomorrow, so that's pretty darn good.
Yeah, that doesn't happen for me.
No, you're out in Bravo, Foxtrot, Echo, Arkansas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you're not. Okay, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm still there. Okay, so hopefully I sound okay. I see.
Great to me.
I see my wonderful mom in the show. And probably others. So Mom will let me know. She gave me a thumbs up, so I hope that means it's sounding okay. I'm going to try to keep an eye on this one meeting. Yeah, I see it. I can see it drop and go. Oh, so Mom said I'm perfect. So of course my mom said I'm perfect. But the greatest fan. But anyways. So a lot of things to cover. It is obviously a busy show. We had a couple different guests I was working on for today. One of them couldn't make it. Well, both of them couldn't make it. That's why they're not here. One is traveling and is not able to get to anywhere to do the show from, and the other one is kind of stepping away after just getting wrapped up with some crazy stuff, and is just like needs some time to just decompress. So. Neither one could make it. I don't want to push on either one of them, and we will. So me and Rob on tonight talk about issues. Rob, how you been?
I've been good. I think we're both a little disappointed after last week's playoffs. Um, your Bills, my Cowboys, didn't fare too well.
No, they didn't. It was a crazy weekend. The Bills just didn't show up, and I don't know what the Cowboys did on that last play. I guess.
As a lifelong Cowboys fan, I can't bring myself to root for any of the NFC teams that are remaining. Whether it was the Giants had beat the Eagles or whatever, I can't root for any of those teams. So I have to go for an AFC team. I just can't bring myself with the history of the Cowboys and the Niners and the Cowboys and the Eagles and such. I just can't root for any of those teams.
So you're rooting for the Bengals?
I am rooting for the Bengals. They are the kind of underdog in this. They haven't won a Super Bowl, if memory serves me correct, and they absolutely haven't won any recently. So I'm pulling for the Bengals.
Yep, I am too, because I do not want to see Kansas City win it again. Even though the Bengals beat us last week because we didn't show up, and that's just the reality of it. Yeah, mom says Rob is low. Yeah, I'm aware of that. I'm not sure how I can do that
I can fix that.
Well, it's because of this board that I got, and you're not coming through that. You're coming across my speakers like Paul did last week, and so that's what they're hearing me off my mic, they're hearing you off my speakers. So they're just not getting the volume that I'm getting. So, but that should be fixed by the next time you see a show, because again, I'm getting a new one tomorrow and returning this one. But yeah, it was the Bills didn't show up. It was not the team that started the season, and it was not the what everyone hoped to see. They know they failed, and just they weren't there, and the things weren't connecting, and the Cowboys were looking pretty good. I watched that game back and forth. I thought they had a good shot. They got down to the wire, like so many teams do, running out of time, no timeouts. But I just didn't understand the whole.
Yeah, I think part of their problem. Well, there's a couple of different problems. One, Dak and the interceptions. The interceptions, can't have that. Can't have that in the playoffs for sure. And then I think the defense just ran out of gas. The defense was doing so much that entire game, and they ran out of gas at the end. So
Yeah, and
kicking was definitely not an issue.
right,
Didn't play any part in it.
right.
So.
Yeah, I think the whole running back as a center. I mean, that dude got floored in a second. I don't know what the thought. I mean, I can't believe we put one or two linemen out there. I mean, there's been enough Hail Mary plays. Every team has a Hail Mary in their pocketbook. I'd never seen one like that where you put one dude up there. In fact, if you go back and watch, you see them. They only have one guy up there. When they realize that's all there's between them and the quarterback, they move the other. Probably was a linebacker or whatever up there. They had him, but when he hiked the ball, they just shoved him over like he was a little kid. And
well, Zeke is. I don't think Zeke is quite the carrier that Pollard is. I mean, in between the 10, the 10-yard line on each end, Pollard is electric. He's a much faster back. He's a little bit smaller, and Zeke is that kind of punch in at the end. But they leaned on Zeke completely and didn't even bring in their third string back at all. And Zeke was averaging like 2.1 yards a carry.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that made no sense.
So
coaching, interceptions, there was a lot to blame it on.
Yep. And if you ever get to Memphis, right near the Memphis airport, actually on EP Boulevard, is Pollard's Barbecue. Wonderful lady runs that place. It's his aunt. You go in there, and and I was down there in November. Picked my wife up from the airport to go down to visit some family in Arkansas, and she flew into Memphis. I picked her up, and I was just yelping for a good barbecue place. We found that one, went in there. Cowboy stuff everywhere, life-size cardboard cutout of them and all that stuff. It's called Pollard's Barbecue. Got talking to the wonderful lady in there running the place. She's the mama of the family, I'm sure, and just talked all about it and her nephew and everything like that. And that's where he's from. He's from Memphis town. So you're good there, and it's really good barbecue. It's worth every bit. So Pollard's Barbecue. He's part of the family. So. I'm sure they were watching
Shot.
and very upset to see him get hurt.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I have a feeling Zeke will be on the trading block. That's just my suspicion. Pollard's a younger back. He's only been in the league a couple of years. Zeke is getting some wear on the tread. So I think he'll probably be on the trading block. They got a lot of money tied into him, and that's way too much money for what he's producing.
Yep, absolutely. Hey, so we got a lot going on besides football last week. We got this week, a lot of things happening in our country. Probably the biggest one is the document scandal, if you would, or the classified documents still being, found and this and that. And I think what's become bigger news than that is just how the administration's handling it. They used FBI and weapons and all this kind of stuff to raid Mar-a-Lago to get the documents that they were negotiating on. I don't know if they can use FBI or whatever to get to break down the Kelly Jean-Pierre or whatever and get her to speak. I mean, it's just when you get the left media, the MSNBC, CNN, to turn against you and ask harder questions than Fox News, you're in a world. Term of where there's smoke, there's fire. You don't have transparency. You don't have, and you don't say things like, I have no regrets. If you show remorse and regrets that I made a mistake, guess what? We're all human. I shouldn't have criticized President Trump like that. Guess what? Apparently I make the same mistake too. Man, that would have went so much farther than I have no regrets. And they keep finding stuff and saying, we absolutely found everything. They could have said, we're still looking. We're making sure there's no other possible place. By the way, the stuff we found is here's some redacted, or you know what? It's not even applicable anymore. It should have never been classified in the first, anything like that. But this, I'm not talking about it, and just putting these journalists in a circle and saying, go talk to them. They come back to them. It doesn't help their case any.
Well, she keeps saying from the podium, the president takes classified material very seriously. My question is, okay, when did he start taking it seriously? Because he obviously didn't if they found it at multiple locations. And some of those locations didn't exist until a time after he was,
right.
He left office. So there was a break in time between when he left office and the Pennsylvania school office was created. So because that didn't exist. So where were they before that? How did they get to that office? How did they get into his garage? He obviously wasn't taking it serious before, and it's been a long time since I've dealt with anything of very high level clearance. I've held multiple different levels of clearance, Signal Corps, in the military, and whether you're in a skiff or other just regular working areas that has top secret information in it.
Mm-hmm.
It was taken very seriously. You didn't just simply stroll out the front door with documents in your hand if they had certain classification levels.
Right.
So between Biden and Pence and even Trump leaving office with the stuff, I mean, it's at the end of the day, the material belongs to the American people. I don't think any of them should walk out with any information. If you want something, there should be a mechanism in place for you to go request it, to have it declassified or classified to a certain level, so you can then put it in your library. But you should walk out of that office with what you walked into that office with. If you walked in there with no information, then that's what you walk out of there with.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, they do get skiffs. They still let presidents have skiffs. They actually give them intelligence briefings. If there's a national, intelligence threat or something, it has been customary that they will go brief any previous living presidents and give them an update, like before maybe we were to launch a military action or something like that, right? They give them the courtesy and tell them what's going on. So I think they do still maintain a skiff where they're at and stuff. And again, only a president can declassify, regardless of what the View thinks. Vice presidents cannot. And there's some gaps, I know there's been a lot of talk of some people saying it's the same as President Biden and his thing is the same as President Trump, and then that's usually from the right, and the left says no, they're not. They're totally different. Trump was worse. Blah blah blah. The reality is they're both bad, but Biden's is worse, and Biden's is worse not because maybe I like President Trump. Biden's is worse because one document is from when he was a senator, which means prior to 2007. The other documents were from when he was a vice president, which means he doesn't have the ability to declassify. And like you said, one of them was moved at least twice. And if they were just picking up bankers' boxes, not looking in there, then that's another issue. But it was moved at least twice. So those were all different. People say, well, it's in Trump's Mar-a-Lago. Well, yeah, there's a Mar-a-Lago resort and there's the private residence, and in the private residence was a locked office, and it was in a locked room in that locked office. So I mean, it's like they were not the same. Now whether President Trump actually declassified them or not, we don't know. That seems to be kind of a loosey-goosey, kind of a vague process of what it takes for a president to declassify. But, it is for the documents to still be as far back. And from 2007, they probably hold no strategic or sensitive information unless they're about our national nuclear stockpile or something. They probably hold nothing that's sensitive. And I think you would agree with me, as both of us have had clearances and still do, that there's way too much overclassification of our stuff. There's too many people that classify things to inflate their ego. I'm handling classified. I've got this. I was like, is it really that sensitive? I mean, I do a lot of work with the federal government, all branches, all departments, and they all have their own security clearance process and procedures. And there's a lot of overclassification, I think, to make people feel important.
Well, one of the things that was missed amongst all of this was the January 6th committee released all of their final report, and one of the things that was in that report was multiple social security numbers for people.
Yeah.
For people who had gone into the White House to visit with Trump, to include Governor, I think it was Governor Abbott and his wife, a couple of other governors, and their social security numbers. So this administration and several in the government don't seem to treat information security very seriously. I mean, look a couple of years ago when Hillary Clinton still had a security clearance, and several others still had security clearances. They've got to tighten these controls down, and they've got to make it equal amongst everybody. If a sailor takes a picture on a submarine and goes to jail for it, anybody else who violates classified information should go to jail for it. That's equal.
Right. Young cat in jail than having hitting your hard drives on your personal server using for government purposes and washing it with bleach bit, and I don't mean wiping it down with bleach, is just as a punishable offense. But they haven't done anything, right? It is, we call it this two-class system. But yeah, this is the administration is definitely not helping itself. I had someone asked me yesterday, a number of people actually in the different chats that I have were like, why are we sending 31 tanks to Ukraine? I'm like, well, because you'll start talking about that when they start engaging targets, and you won't be talking about where classified documents are. Now, does that sound kind of conspiracy to you? Maybe so. Does it mean that it's not legit or not valid? No, could be, could not be. But when M1 tanks and Leopards tanks, German tanks start engaging with T-72s, T-80s, T-90s, that's where all the cameras are going to point. Right, when those 120 main gun rounds start turning them into Swiss cheese, but or vice versa, they start taking out M1s. That's where it's going to go. So, but right now the administration needs to find something to deflect. Right now, of course, now they're also going into the economy, as we are, I guess, are we defunct right now? We can't pay our bills, something like that, right? And
not yet,
but we're close.
We're close.
They got money under the shells, and they're moving the shell game around.
Yeah.
And like, where's the money? And
we've never defaulted on our debt.
Right, but we're close. Uh,
close.
the
The only bright spot in the security snafu is, Swalwell, Schiff, and Omar getting denied spots on certain committees. On the Intel committee for, in specifics. Swalwell, who everybody should know, had a Chinese spy on his campaign. Now, there's some controversy whether he was sleeping with her, whether he wasn't. I don't know, but uh, it's undisputed that a Chinese spy was working on his election campaign. The CIA or one of the other agencies briefed Nancy Pelosi, briefed McCarthy, and this was when the Democrats were still in the majority on that case. Um, Pelosi left him on that committee. That's absolutely not a committee that he should have been on if that's if those were true. And Schiff, his continued lies, his continued abuse of his authority and access to information, it's absolutely justified for him not to be on the Intel committee. I don't think people should be serving for as long as he did on the Intel committee because that makes them a liability, not an asset, in my opinion.
right. Oh, it absolutely shouldn't be. Um, and it's funny to the outrage. It reminds me so much of when President Trump came into office. They were when he moved the headquarters, the embassy to Jerusalem, when he shut this thing down, when he signed this executive order, and did all these things all the time he's office, and people were having meltdowns, and just going, I can't believe he did that. It's like, but that's what he said he was going to do. Like he promised that on his, unlike other politicians, he's fulfilling his campaign promises, all the time. Well, McCarthy said, hey, I get the speakership, and those folks are gone, right? He made it very clear. And then they get all upset. It's like the dude was sleeping with a Chinese spy. This other guy, you can go back and play reel after reel of Schiff saying he had disputable evidence and this stuff of Russia collusion, and got everyone on the edge of their seat. Every journalist and everyone on the left that wanted to get Trump, and he probably was on the right, worried about Trump, being, doing something he shouldn't have done, and thinking he really had something, and it never produced. It was vaporware, as we say in the IT industry. He was just making stuff up, and he sat there, looked right in the cameras, and said, "I've seen it. There's definite proof. He's done it." And we all waited, and there was nothing there, And
Well, and he even denied knowing the whistleblower that came forward after his
right,
office.
right,
People in his office had assisted the whistleblower in testimony and everything.
right. So he's
Schiff is a liar.
right, and they're protected. They can say whatever they want. Congressmen can, and senators in there, and make vague accusations and not be held liable for it. Right? They're protected to say whatever they want, which is why they love having those committee hearings and stuff, whether they're approvals or what it is, because they can say, "Well, I heard, Mr. Kavanaugh, that you did this and this and this," and all of a sudden that gets written in stone like it's the public record. And all they're repeating is, "I heard this," and they would always, there's rumor, and people, oh well, they said it right there, it must be true, and so, which is a terrible protection that I think they have. They should that should be one thing that's changed, but it's a whole different topic. But of course, I mean, there's all kind of politics. What do they say? You want to know when a politician's lying? They're opening their mouth, right? But he did it so blatantly in the front of the cameras and to the American people that it's not surprising. But it's okay. Now he's going to run for Senate. So it.
The unfortunate part is he'll probably get it for that state.
He probably will. He'll beat Porter. Her little racist self, and he'll get it because of where it's at. Like, look, Nancy Pelosi keeps getting reelected, right?
Yeah.
So
Maxine Waters continues to get reelected.
Yep.
That state has a horrible history, horrible track record for electing people.
how they'll continue to navigate the waters or deflect or this crisis, the records, the documents, or if they're going to go towards pivoting to some other news generating event and trying to get people to forget about it. But luckily, with at least the House under the control of the GOP, they are probably not taking their foot off the gas.
Well, I mean, the issue now is the fact that Pence came forward and said, he had material as well. So now Biden has an excuse. We'll see. Like I said, we used to treat classified material very seriously. Now Washington treats it like it's toilet paper.
Right.
They have no regard for classified material. They throw it around.
And again, people that are not at that level, even still today, will not only lose careers, whether it be DoD civilian or contractor or military, but could face severe punishment and prison time, especially in the military, or anything, even DoD civilians. By accidentally walking out with something, accidentally taking a picture or something, whatever it may be. It just is. And will they? Can they get attorneys and have attorneys go? The precedent's been set. It's possible. It could give them an out. It just depends. But yeah, so that's obviously the big news. And it's continued to drag on. And I'm sure that the administration would really like to if they don't open up.
Well, they're one disaster after another, so I'm sure something else will come up.
Right. So I saw something else interesting. When you fill out paperwork, right, Rob? You fill out. It could be a loan application. It could be anything, right? You could fill out something to join your kids going to college. It could be a work application. They always they always want your demographics, right? They always want to know, gender, and now there's all kind of options for that. They want to know your, all kind of info about you. Sometimes even your wage income stuff, and of course there's always your ethnicity, right? They always want to track that, and that's how they put all their stats and census together. So apparently, white, Hispanic, African American, Native American, what else is there, right? I guess there's probably a few others, right? Aren't enough. It looks like they're now going to add some more in there, and the OMB, the Office of Management Budget, is looking at they are not going to allow Middle Easterners or Northern Africans to mark themselves as white. They're going to give them the options of Northern African or Middle Eastern as other heritage or ethnicity in federal government job applications and probably federal loan applications and things like that. So
I think they should just do away with that question altogether.
Are we? Yeah.
We've talked about on the show before about when your packet goes in front of a board for E7 and above, how they've removed the photo, right? And I agree with that. I agree with that completely. Just remove it. It's inconsequential because you're getting promoted on your merit and your record, and that's what it should be. And for those types of things, whether it's a college application, whether it's a job application, my ethnicity has zero effect, has zero, on anything that I do or can do. And there's zero reason to track that. They just should completely remove that question from any application altogether.
I think it should just be your citizenship. What U.S., Canada, Mexico, someone in Europe, South Pacific, right, that kind of thing. But so they just another way to slice and divide rather than look at us all as Americans, right? And so whatever is or whatever to so they can from the Dominican, there can be from